lovely Kathleen gave you like a good solid 7 minutes about why sex is brilliant, whereas I'll be, peppering my argument with lots of dramatic pauses, lots of... And the other thing is, I have the simple task of convincing you why sex is a much better pastime than eating food. Not that I need to, because you people are students. You don't need to. You don't know how to feed yourselves. And you're probably all fucking like rabbits. I mean, this is the first time since you've probably just left home. You're surrounded by your peers. This is like a breeding ground. This is like a petri dish. So I feel like you're already on my side, before I start this argument. But I'm sure our opposition today are going to attempt to argue that you can't live without food, but you can live without sex. But what kind of life is that? That's not a life. We all know that good sex releases powerful and potent endorphins into our bodies. Well, maybe not all of us know that because, we might not all be as good as me, but still, you got to take your time at it, fellas. Don't rush it, seriously. And try and do it sober every now and again, because it's actually better in the long run. After great sex, all of a sudden, the trees seem greener, jokes seem funnier, there's a spring in your step, a twinkle in your eye, and a few stains on your bed sheets, but that doesn't bother you. Because of all the lovely... Sit down. That doesn't bother you because of all the lovely endorphins coursing through your body. And you people are students, you never wash anything anyways. But without sex, what would happen? We would end up eating each other. That's what would happen. What does sex bring us, apart from the odd nasty rash if you're unlucky? Safe sex, kids. You get free condoms at the start of college, don't you? Use them. But sex brings us babies. Babies. If all of a sudden tomorrow sex was rendered obsolete and we couldn't procreate, we couldn't make babies, continue our human legacy, the world would turn upside down. We'd be faced with such a terrifying reality of our impending extinction that chaos would reign and food would be the very last thing on our minds. Those of you who have seen the movie Children of Men will know what I'm talking about. A movie which depicts a grim, apocalyptic reality where everyone has become mysteriously infertile and Clive Owen is the most handsome man left on the planet. And our only hope. Do we really want to face that horrendous reality? No, I don't. Pregnant pause. It's been proven recently that in the brains of nematode worms, the impulse for sex is prioritized over the impulse for food. That's obviously before they've had a few pints. Scientists also found that after a few scoops, if you put them in a box with dancing nematode ladyworms on one side and a kebab on the other, they wiggle straight for the shawarma. But I digress. Apparently this is only in male nematode worms, though. Women nematodes, it's the opposite. But I can speak only from my own view, being a male nematode worm. And they have presumed that these impulse mechanisms are the same in humans. So fellas, according to science, you're with me, ladies, you're with Brent, sorry. This study has coughed up irrefutable evidence that men's desire for sex trumps their desire for food, women's not so, rendering this debate entirely pointless. But nonetheless, making me the winner, kind of. But if you are on the food side, maybe you get your sexual kicks from eating. Bren? If so, you're very much putting yourself in league with one Armin Mewis, right? Who some of you might know. He was a German cannibal who put an ad on the internet requesting a person who would like to be eaten. He found a guy, and together they ate the guy's penis. Then he killed him and ate loads of him before eventually being captured and got convicted of murder. Right? Brendan Sheehan eats like a horse. And sometimes when he looks at me, I'm not sure if he sees his brother or a big chicken drumstick. Beware, where your sexy food perversions will get you. But Wilkes Uni in Pennsylvania discovered that sex boosts your immune system. It's like having a Barocca without all the added sugar. It lowers your blood pressure. It lowers risk of heart attack. Food has the potential to have the completely opposite effect. Sex even releases a hormone that raises your pain threshold. It's for all you spankers out there. Spank on. The more sex you have, the harder you can spank. The sexually active people take fewer sick days. That's why none of you ever go into college. You're not getting enough. Have more sex, kids. Safe sex, mind. Safe sex. Look, folks, the bottom line is we all love a cheese sandwich and a pot noodle, right? But if you had to choose between that and a blowjob from a toothless woman or man with lips like a Michelin tire, or ladies, for you, a nice oily massage with additional finger blasting from a muscular Brazilian man, we all know which one we choose. Settle down, settle down. I, for one, would rather starve to death while having fantastic sex than die slowly of obesity. Go out in a blaze of sexy glory, not in a coffin that none of your family can carry down the aisle. And one last thing, Bren's a virgin!
I am not. An intellect thankfully overpowers that desire and chooses words over fists.
Riding on you, man. It's neck and neck.
Maybe you don't hurt
Your
me.
celery.
In this case, we choose food over sex.
No,
Sex.
sex.
So eyes.
Aye!
Days.
So no food today.
Dinner's cancelled.
Yeah, I might treat myself to a chair, but then again, I might not be able to see me. She wants to turn like a boss. So I'm gonna treat myself to a chair if nobody minds. Hello. So yeah, fire away. What do you want to know? Hello, you.
What was your favorite role?
Actually, a bread roll. My favorite role was the question. Well, do you know what? You know, you asked me one day and you asked me the next. It tends to change. But I'm playing Richard III on stage in London at the moment, and that is extraordinarily gratifying experience because it's a gigantic part, and a lot of it has to do with communicating with the audience. And there's lots of gratification. There's lots of reward in that part, and there's a monstrous range as well, because I mean he goes from being this sort of cheeky stand-up comedian character who's trying to win the audience around to his side, to becoming a complete fascist dictator, to then becoming this blubbering, deconstructed child who's in charge of the whole kingdom and doesn't know what to do, and it's all sort of falling in on top of him. So as regards stretching in various different emotional ways, that part is incredibly rewarding. And I'm doing it right now, and I have a very short-term memory, so it tends to be whatever I'm focused on. But no, in truth, this has been one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever done. And you know what? It's still on till Halloween, so if any of you are planning a jaunt to London, do come and see us. Hello, yourself. Oh God, that's way back. That's a question that has completely baffled scholars for the last 10 years. This is a TV show I did when I was 16 called Foreign Exchange on RTE. And it was sort of a sci-fi-ish show where it was set in a school in Galway, and then and there's a girl who discovers a portal in the basement of the school. When she goes through it, she doesn't end up on a different planet or in the future. She ends up in Australia. Yeah, that was the premise of the show. So they shot half the show in Perth, shot half the other show, the other half in Galway. I was in the Galway bit. And what's your name? Tricia was alluding to the fact that my character, near the end of the series, finds the portal and walks through. I mean, the reality of it was, I was walking through to a second series that never got commissioned. Ending up in Unemployedville, going, what's this? I have to go back to school? Oh. Yeah. So that was it, yes. Hello, yourself? Make me choose. My favourite co-star on Love Hate. I suppose for the purposes of the drama, Tom Vaughan Lawler was always great because you got, I mean, it was down to the writing, but it was hugely down to him as well because you got to play such dramatic tennis with him. You know, me and him had these really, really intense scenes that were very characterful. You know, I mean, a lot of the stuff in Love Hate was about moving the story along very, very quickly, you know. But the stuff between me and Tom's character, Nidge, just sort of slowed down, and he started talking about, you know, what's important to them, you know, and the very life and death things that keeps them going or doesn't or whatever. So some of my fondest memories are being sat in that Jeep in the pouring rain, looking at Tom Vaughan Lawler snarling at me across from the front seat. So yeah, Tom, I had some joyous stuff with him. And even, you know, in the first series, we didn't get any rehearsal time, so we were sort of just thrown in at the deep end. And I mean, my first scene, my first day was in the scene where we've gone to the mortuary or whatever to identify my brother's body in the show. And my very first scene was coming out of that room, seeing my sister, Ruth Bradley played Mary, she was my sister, coming round the corner, and us kind of catching eyes and going, yeah, it's him, Mary, and having this big breakdown scene. And it's sort of so terrifying to go from cold to boiling hot like that, you know. But in that early stuff, me and Tom again had loads of fun. We had this sequence where we went out to the woods in Wicklow, and one character thinks he's going to get it, but we're just giving him a sort of a warning. So a lot of the dramatic stuff me and Tom shared when I was there. I think that's diplomatic enough, isn't it? Hello, yourself over there. Because I've become too much of a diva. Demanding lavender in a man's top hat. like Barney Rubble. My character was killed off in Love Hate because, well, we got to the end of the second series, and my character, for those of you who don't know, was killed off at the end of the third. But we got to the end of the second, and the writer turned around to me, because at the end of the second series, if you remember, my character gets in a taxi and just says, the airport, and off he goes, and that's sort of left very, very open, you know, as often TV shows are, because they're not sure whether their actors are available or whatever else. So they try and sort of leave a fork in the road at the end. But I was talking to Stuart Carrollin, the creator of the show, after the end of the second series, and he said, well, so we've lost you then, you know, you're gone off to America and stuff. And I went, well, not necessarily, you know, I mean, what are you thinking? Do you have any plans for the character? And he said, yeah, I've got a really specific thing that I want to do. And he was talking, I mean, I can talk about this now because it didn't happen in the show, but he was talking about, there was that girl character who befriends me in the third series, who Keelan Dunn played. whose name I just can't remember now. But she, it was a whole thing that he wanted to do where was a victim of sexual abuse from a priest, and so in revenge for this, she goes around burning down churches. Right? And then RTE said, "This is the budget, Stuart. No churches being burnt down, please." But he had a really kind of specific plan, as he always does, for the third series. And my agents and stuff said, "Don't do a third series because you've done 2 now, and that's plenty." But Stuart, has this very obsessive, very specific mind, and every single inch of that show he's written. There's not a team of writers writing. It's just him strapped to the beast in a room, being edited by another guy called Steve Matthews, who is sort of honest enough, and Stuart respects him enough to allow him to cut his work when it needs cutting, which it does quite often. What was my point? Oh yeah. So the third series, he definitely lured me back in for that, and I'm really happy he did, because the third series of it was my favorite series in a way, because I just think it really, the second series I thought it garnered its identity, but the third series it really took it to another level. So I was absolutely overjoyed, and the third series became the most watched show in Ireland, ever. So that was, thankfully it was right to stay. I was lucky. Oh, hand over there.
When did you first discover you wanted to act?
I don't know when I first discovered I wanted to act. I don't really know, to be honest. I think it was when my first acting thing was when I was like 12. I was in the final year of primary school, and we did a play in the school called Oliver with a Twist. Oh yes. Which was like really odd comedy sketches thrown into the storyline of Oliver Twist, where it's like, making fun of ads that were on television. Also, it was kind of half written by our principal. So I was Oliver in that, and had lots of fun doing that. So that, that being my first acting thing. But then I sort of I badgered our dear mother to take me to an open audition when I was about 13 for a film called Song for a Raggy Boy, which some of you might know is a sort of dark film about Catholic reformatory school in the 30s, lots of abuse, both physical and sexual. It's a real joy to make, a real barrel of laughs, which it actually was. That's the truth of it. So through a series of open calls for that, I had shown to my mother and to others that I was quite the show-off at that point and wanted to be an actor. So it was interesting because the first real audition for that film, we were all sort of reading the same parts, the kind of main parts, and I went in and had a sort of an adrenaline rush when I was reading the part. And for the first time, kind of lost control in a room reading a script, and something else kind of took hold, and I remember leaving the room being incredibly embarrassed and ashamed by what had happened, and not feeling like, I think that was the right thing to do. I felt it was the right thing to do, but I don't know where it sort of came. But I got a small part in that film anyway, and I think it was down to that. I think it was because it was a sort of the acting thing kind of kicked in, which is a joy, and it's now something. When you go for an audition, it's now something that you yearn for, for that sort of chemistry, the electricity in the air to kind of take you and sort of do something that's entirely outside of your control normally, So I think that was a good point to yeah. Hello.
Yeah, alright. Yeah, in this, it's some of the best parts when you were tying off with the characters, like when some of them had sex with cheese or something like that. Was most of that improvised or scripted?
It was scripted. It was all scripted. I wish I could tell you otherwise, but Misfits was similar to Love Hate in the sense that the first 2 series of the show had a creator, a sort of a mind who wrote all the show. So, and it was extremely well developed. So in the sense that it was all written
and then rewritten and rewritten and rewritten and developed and ideas expanded upon well before we shot it, you know. And that's the thing with TV series sometimes, is that you can start off with a very strong couple of series because they've taken the time and the care to develop something. But then when the demand is on to write a new season, you know, and you've got less than 6 months to do it, that's when the quality can plummet a little bit. And because you're also farming out the writing work to lots of people to get it done, you know. So I suppose it's like that old saying, camel. This is a saying that some of you might not know, but a camel is a horse designed by committee. Have you ever heard that? It just basically means one mind is better than the other. Hello, your good self. Right? So my dear friend Conor MacDizzle is in the front row. Conor MacNeil is in the front row here. And we were in Toronto once. I was doing a film in Toronto and he was visiting me. And because the film I was doing was based on a series of books, it was called Immortal Instruments, right? So there were always fans outside where we lived, you know, just sort of hanging around. And one night, there were some fans there, and they got a little gift bag together for me, and it had a bottle of whiskey in it, right? And it was like these 16, 17-year-old girls, but I think they were with their mum, and they decided to buy me a bottle of whiskey, and then myself and Conor promptly went upstairs and drank it, and then came back down drunk, and I think gave them some gifts, but I can't remember what we gave them. I mean, you know, blanking on the memory, obviously, from all the whiskey, but yeah, we ended up giving them some weird gifts that we'd made in the apartment. I can't remember what it was. Oh, dear. Good times, good times. Hello.
So the budget's so small for season 3 and okay that Darren had to wear sensitivity for the whole time.
Apparently, yeah. You know what? The question was the budget so small on Love Hate 3 that I had to wear the same hoodie throughout the whole series? I did get to keep it, actually. I gave it as a gift to the Dunamaze Theatre in Portlaoise, and there it hangs on the wall as a piece of memorabilia. That's quite nice. Yeah. One person there. Hello. Yeah.
I read online or something.
God.
Oh, yeah.
You know what? Right, I would, but I was just in the back there having a cup of tea, and I said, "Oh, do you have any sugar?" And they slid a pot over to me. I opened the pot, and there was a fork. I doubt we'll find 2 spoons in this entire house if there's a fork in the sugar pot. So I actually forked sugar into the tea. Hello.
Hi, if you could choose any role to play, what would you choose and why?
Choose any role to play. I don't know.
Or
I mean,
is like any role of significance for you? Like when you were first getting into acting, something you saw and like inspired you to experience.
actually, this is something I should know. I should be able to. You know, I suppose the nature of the work sometimes is that you have to judge each project on its merit to some extent, and sometimes the role can be the biggest thing about a project. It's the best written thing in a script, and you know, even if the script isn't great, you know, but it's a hard one to say. I mean, as regards, my mind is thinking real people in the world to play. You know, I did think recently, I was like, I could play Adam Ant and be really good at like, I could do like a really good Adam Ant impression. Yeah, so for the want of giving you a name, I say, yeah, I'd do like an Adam Ant biopic. He's still alive too, so you know, we might get him to agree to that. Hello.
The
The one I'm doing at the moment was pretty damn challenging. Just exhausting and emotionally exhausting. You know, you get home at the end of a day. You don't have energy to take your socks off without breaking into tears. It's great, you know. It's you know, you get all this emotional welling, you know, but it's kind of hard to stop that sometimes, you know. But I did do a film called The Road Within, which was a sort of an indie film in the US about a character who has Tourette's syndrome, really debilitating Tourette's syndrome. So luckily I had the best part of like 4 or 5 months to learn how to have Tourette's syndrome, which you know, it was really, really challenging because obviously there are many, many people in the world who suffer from Tourette's syndrome. So to do it in a film and to misrepresent those people would be just an absolute travesty. So thankfully I had a lot of preparation time for that. And it came off really well. I think you can see the fact that this actor has put loads of time into pretending to have Tourette's from the film, you know, at the risk of boasting. But that was a challenge. That was a big challenge because it involved weeks of getting it wrong, you know, and going way over the top with it and going, oh my God, I'm gonna you know, misrepresent a huge sort of group of people here. But I worked with people who have Tourette's syndrome quite a lot on that, which was really beneficial. People who have different levels of it. Like there was one guy in LA called Jackson who he still has Tourette's syndrome, but his medication means that it's very much suppressed. It sort of spikes every now and again, but he's pretty okay. But I worked with this other girl called Ruth Ojadi, who's an English singer, and she's got really vocal coprolalia, is the vocality of Tourette, and Tourette's itself. And it was kind of a joy hanging around with her because we did everything from like going shopping to doing hot yoga, or just sort of being in different situations with her and seeing how her Tourette's responds to the environment around her and stuff. Like for example, we'd go into a Sainsbury's in London and she'd go, "I'm stealing!" as soon as she walked through the door. And then as she's putting her PIN code into the machine, she'd go, 4259, and she's like actually shouting out her PIN code. You know, sort of just so bizarre. It was brilliant, actually. I have a mate called Joe Sangre I was with Ruth in Camden, and Joe came down to me. I didn't tell him that I was with someone who has Tourette's syndrome, just to sort of see what happens, you know. And they were sat there together for a while, and then Ruth went, "Your mum's a Jew, your dad's an alien, and your grandmother never loved you." Out of nowhere. It was so funny, man. It was so funny. But she's brilliant. She's such a sense of humor about her Tourette's syndrome. She's really lovely. And sort of,
Guys, unfortunately, we have time for one more question.
oh God! Look at that very animal. It was up before, Risa. I didn't notice that one before. Yeah. Oh, anyone I'd like to work with in the future? You know what? Myself and lovely Sophia went to see the movie The Lobster last night, and I wanted just to work with everyone in that film, really and truly, because I loved it. Absolutely loved just the madness and absurdity of it. Colin Farrell was just, you know, massively bringing the game. He's someone you should all check out that movie. It's so, I mean, actually interesting because we've been going on about sex for the last like hour and a half, but that film very much talks about the pressure that human beings are under to sort of carry out relationships and fall in love, but it comes at it from such a weird and absurd way. It's brilliant, you know. It kind of shows the absurdity of the sort of tradition of matchmaking and stuff. So Colin Farrell, Ben Whishaw is another actor who's in that, who I absolutely love Ben Whishaw. And it was lovely actually because Ben Whishaw, one of his first job out of drama school was he played Hamlet in the Old Vic for Trevor Nunn, who cast him. Loved this kid who cast him out of drama school, and that really kicked off his career. And I'm currently playing Richard III for Trevor Nunn, so that's quite good. It's a nice little comparison to be drawn out. Ben Whishaw. I really love keeping MC Fassy B, old Michael Fassbender. Love him. Can't wait to see Macbeth. Cillian Murphy, I love as an actor. There's so many like Mark Rylance on stage. Mark Rylance, a lot of you know him for, he was the star of Jerusalem, which was on stage like forever in New York and London. He's probably the best stage actor in the world. Daniel Day-Lewis, which, you know, it's a cliche, but he's just fucking great. I mean, he's just so brilliant at acting. It's infuriating, you know. It's sort of, it's difficult to watch him as an actor because he's so incredible, you know. So obviously I'd like to be near him at some point, you know, just near his leg. Just touch him maybe once. So yeah, absolutely. That's my list at the moment. There's a woman there with a hand. Go on, we'll do one more yourself. Hair tips. Brendan Sheehan told me this one actually. Which look at that mane on Brett. Every now and again, as needed, to moisturize, you warm up some olive oil. You rub it vigorously into the old scalp, and then put some like cellophane or whatever, cling film on your head for about 45 minutes, and then wash it out. It's great for the hair. Really good. Yeah.
So we'd like to thank you all for coming to see Robert at the hist. In this room at 7. So looking forward there. Yeah, we do have a team discussion afterwards. Again, thank you to our speakers who are all amazing. No, I don't usually speak that much. You're awesome. But right, we also have a raffle, which hopefully has I'm going to take
Okay, look.
Can everyone please sit down in their seats until we're finished? Thank you.
So that was
yeah, I believe so. Okay. Keep that raffle. We'll get an email tomorrow to the extras.
So what's our
Yeah,
okay.